I like to tell people that branding in itself is actually quite simple. It's the nuances of branding that get very complicated. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tetrimuse podcast. My name is James King, and I'm so glad to have you here today. On the last episode, I just wanted to introduce myself and give a little backstory about how I got here with Tetrimuse. Today, I want to try to lay the groundwork for most episodes moving forward. And when I do podcasts in the future, I'll probably point a lot of them back to this particular episode because I truly believe that these are the foundational elements that are going to help musicians understand how to start using branding. Let me preface all of this by saying I like to tell people that branding in itself is actually quite simple. It's the nuances of branding that get very complicated. And the reason why I believe that is because when you talk about the nuances, you're getting into what makes something individualistic. So when you're working with a brand or you're working with an artist, the branding starts to become individualized. It's not general anymore. Kind of like a fingerprint. You want it to be specific to that individual. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of the general side of elements that will help your branding, but also hopefully help you start working towards the nuance side of your branding. We're not going to dive in on the nuance today. We're going to focus on what I believe are the core fundamentals of the general side of branding. Hopefully, there'll be a springboard to get you closer to understanding who you are as an artist and how you can use these tools moving forward. Okay, super stoked. Let's get going. The 5 foundations are intentional authenticity, cultural significance, target demographic, values and alignment, assets, and deliverables. And one thing I want to preface all this with is saying these are all stackable and they all blend together. They all work together. But 3 of them in particular, cultural significance, target demographic, values, and alignment, work so much together that I'm just going to talk about all 3 of those as if they're the same thing. When I'm putting on a workshop or if I'm working with an artist, the first thing I have them do is understand whether they are an authentic artist or an alter ego artist. And I like to call this intentional authenticity because I want you to be deliberate in why you're doing what you're doing as an artist, because that's going to reflect in what you put out to the world in your deliverables, in the assets that you put out. Now, let me explain a little bit about both of those. If I'm an authentic artist, I'm putting music out as myself, the person that I am as an individual. I am creating music and releasing that in hopes that people will resonate with me. An alter ego is on the flip side of that. It's somebody who wants to participate in an idea or a community or a type of culture, and they create an act or persona that will resonate with that particular community, idea, or culture. So I would say some really good examples of authentic artists are most singer-songwriters. You know, think of Ed Sheeran, John Mayer, those type of personalities. And then putting on an alter ego personality would be people like Kiss or David Bowie and those type of personalities. Now, sometimes you can see those 2 worlds start to merge towards the middle a little bit or blend, but really you want to understand if you're going to be pursuing it as an authentic artist or an alter ego artist. Next on the list is cultural significance. And I think out of all of these, cultural significance is probably the most important. And when you look at target demographics and your values and alignment, they are hand in hand when it comes to cultural significance. So I'm actually going to blend those 3 together today for the sake of this conversation. Cultural significance is who you are as an artist, as well as who they are as a target demographic. And what we're looking for here are signifiers that will tell you what is valuable to certain target demographics. So what we want to do first is we want to figure out what is your values, what's important to you, what makes up you as an individual. I like to say that these can be divided into different categories like your political ideas, your spiritual ideas, what type of clothing you like to wear, what type of music do people like to listen to. All of those are signifiers that showcase what's important to people culturally. So we want to understand what makes up who you are as an individual and what makes up your audience as individuals and how that can work as a community and culture. Therefore, what you do is you start aligning yourself with that particular target demographic, because ultimately what we want is we want to start leading a culture of people that want to participate in the community that we're building. The final thing I want to talk about are assets and deliverables. All these are our visual representations of everything we just talked about. When you're trying to put out content and you're trying to portray yourself to a community, it's really important to understand how all of these things before it make a difference. Are you an authentic artist? Are you an alter ego artist? Do you understand what is culturally significant to the people you're trying to communicate with? Do you understand who you are as an individual and how to communicate yourself? Do you understand your values? Do you understand what your target demographics' values are? One great way to start giving yourself a direction for visual assets is to put together a list of adjectives that you think make up who you are. Are you funny? Are you quirky? Are you serious? Adjectives are a really great way to give you a direction to point towards. Now, as you go through this process, I just want you to know it's very hard. And it's probably something that will evolve over time as you change, as society changes, as your art changes. It's always something that you need to be doing and be cognizant of and evolving because times change. But I would say the most important aspect of all of this is that you are being intentional with why you're doing what you're doing. That way your audience can participate with it, and that you don't throw them a curveball with all of a sudden a massive change and they go, wait a second, that's not who I thought this person was. That's not the type of music I thought they played. You want your audience to be a part of that conversation. Have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. So just to recap real quick, we talked about intentional authenticity, understanding if you're an authentic artist or an alter ego. We talked about cultural significance, who you are and who they are. We talked about understanding your target demographic and what's important to them. Also, what is important to you when it comes to your values and the alignment with your target demographic. Lastly, we talked about assets and deliverables and how important adjectives can be in order to give you a direction for what those assets can look like. Now, I know that these are a lot of really big concepts that are whittled down into brief descriptions. And that's why I'm saying it's really difficult when you start talking about the nuanced side of music or the nuanced side of the artist. This is something I've been working on for about 3 to 5 years. These concepts, intentional authenticity and cultural significance. It took me a long time to wrap my head around those concepts. And it's funny because as I built this out and I look back on it, it seems so obvious now. But during the time I was trying to build it and to try and articulate it, it was very difficult to put form to these ideas, especially when you're talking about it from the angle of music and artists. That's all I've got for you guys today. Anybody who's interested in learning more about what I do with my own personal music, I use a stage name, Widdison King. That's WIDDISONKING. And it's on all of the socials out there. I've got some music on Spotify. Over the next, I would say 6 months, things are going to start popping off there because I'm trying to take a lot of these things that I'm teaching with Tetrimuse and using my own personal music as a sandbox. A lot of this is experimental, and what better way to do that than to pursue my own music and to use these strategies to hopefully connect with my own audience. So I'm in the trenches with you guys. I'm out there doing the same thing. Just keep up the good fight. It is totally worth doing it, even if it's just for yourself. Make music, have fun doing it. And I hope that if you are seriously pursuing music as a career, that you find some value out of this stuff. And if you implement it and you see some traction starting to happen, please hit me up. I would love to hear about that. One of my goals is to have somebody write into me and say, hey, I started doing this and it's really helped. And that would be a huge win for me. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And please, if you want to follow along with what we're doing, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment or leave me a question. Let's build out this community and let's have some fun doing it. Thanks, y'all. I hope you have a good day.